all nominated for Oscars, and we already have some winners already. So let's start with Oscar nominated production sound mixer. He also won the Cinema Audio Society Award for this. Stephen A. Morrow. Golden Reel winner and Oscar nominated for sound editing. Supervising sound editor Don Sylvester. And they just got in from London, where they won the BAFTA for Best Editing. Ladies and gentlemen, Oscar-nominated editors Michael McCusker and Andrew BUCKLAND. And ladies and gentlemen, the director and producer of Ford vs. Ferrari, Mr. James MANGOLD.
Oh, it's not in the middle.
Jim, you want this seat over here?
No, I'm good.
So, the first question I want to ask you is, a while back when we spoke, and we were talking about getting an original adult film with stars off the ground in a town that's obsessed with IP when it comes to movies. You had mentioned your agent said to you, enjoy it, this could be the last one. But it's not. The film's made over $200 million. You've got you've got a Best Picture nomination. You have 4 Oscar nominations. Are you a little bit more open-minded to the fact that this genre could work?
Well, I think he meant the pricier original movie, which is endangered. I don't think I'm open. I think it's actively endangered. I mean, the award season makes you feel for a moment like there's a few of them, and then we live through the next 9 months of the year, and we go, when was there a movie without someone wearing armor?
Right.
That's a part of the world we live in now. I think what he was particularly saying is we were a $90 million film, and that's an original film that costs that much is rare, and it took it bears noting that Emma Watts recently departed from Fox or now called 20th Century Pictures Studios.
But the logo's still up here. 20th Century Fox.
Yes, although I won't miss the Fox, given all the Murdoch connotations. That was a kind of, I'm sad for history, but I'm not sad to not be commingled with that. But but it is, she deserves a lot of credit, because it's really less about the courage or ambition of folks like us in terms of a movie like this getting made, and because we don't stand to lose as much if it doesn't work. They do, and I think executives who take a risk and make something that doesn't make 100% sense on paper as a profitable film really deserve some credit.
And there's not a sequel to this. Oh yeah.
Before I open it up to the guys, one more question. You wanted to direct this, and you were tracking the script.
I did, in fact.
I know.
It worked out.
What was it that you loved? Because tell the audience, because about racing and you.
I guess where you're headed is that I was not attracted to this movie from, like, I need to make a racing movie. I had, if anything, I have a kind of slightly skeptical relationship with racing, in the sense that I avoid it whenever I come upon it on television. And I love cars. I love driving my car, and I love the world of engineering and design. I'm fascinated by all that. But it was this particular story and the characters, that when I learned about them, particularly how the movie unwound, how the story unwound, convinced me that we had something to say with this film. Meaning that, I see movies and you see, another underdog sports movie where the unlikeliest of people take on and lo and behold, they win. And you're like, I didn't want to make another one of those. And that, so that isn't what this is. I have a feeling a lot of the people who got dragged to the theater were sure that's what they were going to see, and then it was different than that. But that's what attracted me, was the fact that it unwound. And the other thing was that I think the reason the story appealed to me so much was that, and I think a lot of these guys would agree, it really feels like what it feels like to make a movie. That there's a real analogous, the whole dance trying to make this very expensive, one-of-a-kind object called a movie that costs $90 million in this case is not dissimilar to making this one-of-a-kind car that has no practical purpose in the world, just like a movie, other than to perform this kind of strange function for our entertainment and testing of our boundaries. And that weird relationship between commerce and art, between instinct and kind of MBA business sense and marketing and purity, really seemed to me a way to make a movie about something we all kind of experience and feel a lot about, but through the prism of not making it a motion picture movie, as it were.
One more question. Great comedy in this. Was that always there? Was that always there in the script, or did that come later on? I mean, just everything from Tracy Letts' Ford getting into the car with Shelby to the fight on the street with the bread, and everything is just, when it's funny.
Well, thank you. That's
down to the Italian guy stubbing out his cigarette.
Oh,
when
he's
in front of
great. That
Ferrari.
guy is great. Yeah. Well, he's kind of a comic actor in Italy, and well, all I can say is that for me, and it's one of the things that comes from me doing, I've done many different genre of film, more comedic films, romantic films, musical biopics, sports films, Marvel movies. One of the things that I feel like I love about my own journey making movies is that I'm always learning something from the last film to carry to the new one, and I certainly think I wanted humor in this film, because it's part of the camaraderie of doing anything in life is humor. I didn't want to make a kind of portentous movie about self-important male gods building their male driving edifice. It's all too pompous, and it's because there's something ludicrous about this whole activity, and that needs to be part of it too, because that's part of the fun of it actually too, is that it's strange that we as humans are building these things that could kill us to hurl ourselves around in this loop, but it's also, it says something about who we are as creatures, and so humor is a big part of always trying to solve that, and to bring, especially if you're trying to make, the way we saw it always, as a character piece, more than a sports movie or an action film. We saw it as, first and foremost, just what an audience may be coming for, and the reason the studio might be greenlighting it is they see the ability to sell it as a kind of action film, but that what we were enjoying making was a kind of big character piece about a lot of unlikely and strange and unique personalities gathered together for a singular purpose.
Another secret to success here that if all of you could sort of talk about is, with this film and with all of your work, is working with the same team over and over again and having a shorthand. And too often enough, when you read, one of my jobs is I cover box office, and when you go in and you do a deep dive on when sideways with the film, quite often it's some sort of discord that happened along the way. That didn't happen on this film or any of his films. There's a team here, and if all of you could talk about that, what did Jim want? What was it from the editors to the sound editors? How were you all on the same page? Was it looking for the shots of? There's a lot of reaction shots. There's a lot of the vibe of this is about the driver in the car. What were some of the things? How did you all get on the same page?
I can say that, I've worked with Jim for a long time. The first movie I cut was Walk the Line for Jim. And, getting on the same page, that was the movie that taught me what the page was to get on, which was, I was looking at that as some sort of historical document. And Jim broke it down for me because I was having this kind of, intellectual fight in my head about what it was. And he said, it's a love story. And so he boiled it down in a moment to what is the essence of why we go to the movies, which is to see people. It's always to see faces and to see emotion. And I think that is the one thing I can say universally. We always we're all, that's the baseline, that's the common ground we share. And so what Jim said a moment ago is spot on. I mean, we are telling a character movie. And if we don't have that, if we haven't grounded that and delivered on that first, erasing this movie is gonna be, it's gonna be like, Star Tours at Disneyland. It's not gonna, it's gonna be done and over, and you're not gonna really feel invested in that race.
It's a character, you said it, it's a character movie with
Racing. Happens to have racing.
And then talk about the sound editing and the sound mixing. Don, I remember we were talking about before you had to match the cars have different personalities.
Right.
And you had to make
Right.
sure that they all sounded appropriately and also getting the right sound. Talk about that.
Well,
that challenge.
there's picture cars that are in the movie that are workhorses that aren't race cars per se. We needed the engine sounds of the actual race cars because I know each and every one of you out there is a sound editor, if not maybe part-time, but I knew that sound people would be looking at this movie towards its historical references, and they would also want to make sure that we didn't like trick them out with some stupid sci-fi kind of sounding cars. And so finding the cars was really important, and making sure the cars were not going to overpower the story. I mean, it's a story with cars, but each car had to have its own identity and personality. So when you saw a car, you knew which car it was. Sometimes we only feature one car. You see 7 cars, but you're only hearing the one car that we want you to focus on, and that's part of the storytelling. And everything that's in the cars, the personality of the cars is reflective of the storytelling of the characters and the cars themselves. So we didn't want to make it too loud. We didn't want to blow away the people in the front row. I'm sorry if we did, but I don't think we did, because we had some fine mixers who were not here.
One's on a plane.
One's on a plane
Or
still coming back from London. We came from London, by the way. And so the balance of having story was partially defined by the fact that we're not all racing all the time, and we're focusing on the characters themselves, but we didn't want to blow you away with the racing either.
How did you get those racing noises?
They're not noises, they're sounds.
How did you get them, Don? We want to hear the story of the guy in Florida with the car he
Because on
built
set,
from
we
parts.
definitely
Come
didn't-
on now.
Yeah, we definitely didn't get the race cars on set.
It's a story I can tell.
Oh, you're gonna play hard to get? We'll move
No,
on.
I'm not.
Okay.
Well, we found all the cars of that vintage, and I'm gonna tell you right now that you own a $30 million car, you're not gonna take it out and run around the track for a couple of days.
See, it gets a laugh, see?
But we did find one car that we did take out on the track, and sure, you're gonna wanna have the real sound of the car, but the car owner will drive the car, and he'll drive it the way he wants to drive it. So partly, we got the right sounds, but we also had to sort of maneuver and do a little trickery to make it sound like it was going 220 miles an hour.
He didn't drive it.
He refused to even think about driving it over maybe 150. I said,
There's actually not much difference between when a car sounds like a 150 and 200.
According to his knuckles, there are. Plus, we didn't have a 3-mile track to wind it out for that long period of time. The car, though, was just a great sounding car, and you hear that car in all of the GT40s. I know you're pointing to me. You had something
No,
to add.
I'm nodding to you.
Oh, he's
Agree,
nodding, he
agree.
agrees. And we also got a Ferrari, we also got, all the cars that are identified are the real cars from that era. And that was a real battle that we had to make sure we won, because, authenticity is half the game. And we didn't wanna, we didn't wanna have anything that was stupid.
And kind of knowing that in advance on set, we didn't waste time trying to get the cars that we had on set, knowing that those were not ever gonna be played in the movie, because Jim had said, these aren't the right cars, these aren't the right sounds, we're gonna make sure that this is the right sound. So we focused on set to get the dialogue the best we could, knowing that, when they're ripping away from the pits, that's probably gonna have to be replaced, so get the best, guy you can at that moment, or maybe we'll be able to use parts of it. But, so that's kind of where his, the whole camaraderie of everybody working together, he just, lays it out and says, here you go. Don't waste your time on that.
sound really is symphonic. Like the scene where you're coming into the garage near the airport and you hear a vroom, vroom. It's the, that tool. Forgive me. One of the power tools.
Don or Steve can tell you what that tool is.
Yeah, but you
the
hear
air-
that in the
air
back,
A
and
mud
it's
wrench?
yeah, it's perfect. It's just and then the traveling. Everything is well balanced, leading into the dialogue.
Thank you to the mixers who are experts at their job, and we had that in mind, that we wanted to have well balanced. People told me in the beginning that they were afraid that the cars would scare away all the women, but I think I see women, and I think that women love this film. Shameless, Don. I learned from the best.
Drew and Michael, talk about the challenge, if there was, of matching, Le Mans. The Le Mans track was shot between Georgia and in Northern California, which we could talk more about.
Not Northern California, right here,
Right here,
Agua Dulce,
my bad.
just
My
on the
bad.
way toward Magic Mountain. You just passed there.
Alright.
Yeah, that was where we built the grandstand. But anyway, you were asking
The
Drew and
matching,
Michael a question.
the matching process between, marrying two states so that it looks like it's all of France. And
Well,
just
I-
the challenges of that.
Yeah, I think when they shot in Georgia for most of the Le Mans, the road racing section, the other section was in here in Agua Dulce, the grandstands, and when Jim went to shoot the Ken Miles and the drivers, that was also here as well. But I think initially in the cut, and Mike can jump in too, but initially in the cut we were more concerned less about the topography mismatch at the moment, just about making the race seem fluid and connect action-wise, and later we could deal with the discrepancies in the
What
topography.
discrepancies?
Well, the desert as opposed to the.
Oh, we made that go away.
Yes,
though.
we did. Okay.
Yeah,
So, like, we were worried
that's
about
where
that in the
visual
beginning.
effects come in.
I see.
Yeah.
That's that background.
Yeah, but that visual effects helps us with that.
We know where all the bodies are buried.
Was there ever you hear this often on films? We know Malick does this a lot, but I know the guys with Bombshell were talking about this. Do you ever find the film in the editing, or no? The script's already done all the work. Do you find it in the editing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I mean,
I like to think that you are finding the film when you're writing, you are finding the film when you're shooting, you are finding the film when you're editing, and you're finding the film when you're mixing, and that the finding never stops. And in fact, when you walk in and watch it now from behind the audience, you're like, shit, maybe I should have. Like, you just never stop finding the movie, and so and I think that that's something, again, having a team that's really used to working together, and that's, by the way, not just the sound and edit team, but a lot of camera and picture and music editor and post supervisor and script supervisor and just a myriad ADs, lots of people who have been with us a long time and then coming around again. Everyone knows the philosophy of the film itself and kind of follows it.
and the filmmaker. I mean, everybody knows what you're after. I mean, that's at the end of the day, we can get along all we want, but there still has to be a leader, and we all know where Jim's going from. I mean, we understand his aesthetic, and you always err towards character first.
Yeah.
It's the simplest thing. It's like if you're serving that and you're having a problem, then you figure out how to fix that problem at the character and story level. But we don't try to cover it up by just sort of whiz-bang effects. I think that one of the things about this movie in terms of the driving, and Jim was insistent on it, is that you wanted to feel that you could drive the cars yourself. So that when you walked out there, you wanted to feel like you could actually be in that car. And I've said it before, I've had people come up to me after watching this movie and said that they drove home really fast after watching this movie. Because they just wanted, they felt
Be
like they had to
careful.
drive. And I know I did. I think I got 3 speeding tickets while I went through. That is not an exaggeration. So,
You can write them all.
Yeah, but you were getting them before. You were getting them on Walk the Line.
Yeah. But I I had a good gap there.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
this movie. So that's what it boils down to. I mean, it's really just that sort of shorthand. You can call it shorthand. I know that, Don sits next to me and works with me almost from day one when I start cutting a movie. So Don's there. He's looking at what I'm doing. We talk about the movie all the time. He'll give me ideas about. He'll make me think about things picture-wise that I haven't thought about. It's just all that ego stuff goes away when you've worked with people for so long. There's just no.
He did mention my name though.
It's
Not all the ego goes away.
But it kind of leavens it, and you're just looking for the same place. You're just looking into the horizon at the same spot, and that's what we do.
Working with Jim, and I think everybody can agree that it's just a fun experience to work. It's a lot of work. It's hard, but it's not. There's not that ego. There's not that. It's a good set to work on. At least for me, I get to watch something change every take, every setup, because Jim is always creating and finding and experimenting and letting people do that as well.
And that's hard for location sound. That's an ordeal because, like, the simplest thing, and I've worked with other mixers over the years, and it's like I'll always suddenly be giving an extra or an actor an unpredicted line, and I cannot remember to run over to the sound department and go, Joe's gonna say, between him saying this and that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just happening. I'm working with the actors, but some mixers will be like, I'm not having that mic open if there isn't something on the sides, that mic's down. And the reality is that it's not easy being enough on your feet with a cast that's improvising, a director who's changing and rewriting on set. And blocking is changing, and how you're going to get to these actors with the boom or with the lav, or how you're doing it is changing all the time, and remaining good-natured about it, which again has to do with forsaking the ego of your own turf. Meaning, I'm sure there's times, many times, I'm sacrificing the quality of what Steve is doing, if you judged it in isolation, for the greater good of the film. And you need each person to understand sometimes my end of things has to get boned so that the movie can be better. Because, like, sometimes I'll ask the actors to play it at a ridiculously low volume because I think the scene is more moving if I just feel like they're not pushing the lines. And I'll get a look from Steve like, we're at the threshold, dude. It's not usable anymore. But I have to make a decision. I'm like, okay, it's okay. Like, we'll go for it. But because it's working or something, and that everyone, I've been on things where someone will go, they can't control themselves. The sound mixer will send someone over to the actor to say, you really could pick it up a little bit. And like, that's where the ugly side, like that person would be gone the following week. Like because the magic of what's happening, you don't fuck with. And that's what, whether you're cutting, whether you're shooting, it's kind of like there is a bubble where, to me, we're all after the same thing, which is to make something happen in the most artificial of circumstances with 100 lights pointing at it and cameras and cable and equipment and catering, and make it look like none of us are there and these two people are having a conversation alone on a runway. And that in itself is kind of crazy activity to spend your days doing, but it's the magic of what we do.
Before I toss it over to the audience, I am continually impressed about the pacing of this movie, and just seriously, I was watching it again. I can watch it again and again and again. It's just so easy, so fast. Everything from the drama to the cars to the drama to the cars. Nothing ever gets tired. What's the secret sauce to pacing?
Mike, Drew?
Secret sauce.
No, that's.
I fail rhythm,
Yeah. No,
so
I mean,
that's why I'm always amazed.
I don't know. I mean, it's something that's hard to define. Every movie's different. Every movie's got its own challenges in terms of pacing, and where it lags or where it's moving. I think it speaks to the magic that Jim was just talking about, which is it's a combination of things. I mean, I often say there's real time and there's cinema time, and cinema time can be moments in movies that are short but feel like the ideas are so big it feels long, and Converse, and you just have to be kind of aware where you're feeling like. I guess the best way to put it is, once an idea is delivered, you need to move on. And because we as humans, we digest ideas quickly. And once you've gotten the idea, our business is done. And so that's the way I kind of try to look at editing. Is like, we got it, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's where I try to find pacing. So to say that it's like, well, I trimmed here or I put the scene there, I could get into the minutia of it, but it's really kind of more on that, I don't know, ephemeral level.
It's like everything within a scene. It's when you know a scene is working, is you know that there's nothing extra in the scene that's just unnecessary or sort of like weighing the scene down. It's like everything serves a purpose for the specific scene or the narrative you're telling or the characters who are speaking. Everything's necessary. And then when you feel like something is like extra or it's slowing it down or like you're lingering too long on this thing that's not necessary for the narrative, then that's when the pacing is off or.
If it weren't out, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Just
Exactly.
Let's open it up. Yes.
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful, wonderful gift that you give us today.
Oh, thank you.
So much. I want to know a little bit about your casting and also your rehearsal process. And it was a different work with American actors and Italian actors. And the third thing is, three questions. The father-son theme seems very strong. Was that deliberate? Because I noticed it, beautiful movie, 3:10 to You also.
Yeah.
And this was the end, Walk the Line.
The easy one, no, there's no difference between directing Italian actors. At least not one that I could make ethnically, generally, tastefully. But no is the answer. Father, son, well, you know, in our last movie, Logan, that we all worked on was father-daughter, and father-son, if you consider Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman's relationship. I mean, those are big themes in life. I mean, who we are and what we come from and how we come to peace with what we're leaving behind are like, that's everything, right? I mean, it's kind of everything. And very often, though, a lot of these themes exist in movies in the most cursory, half-assed way that they almost seem like they're just thrown in, you know. Here's the 2 minutes where these characters talk about their issue from their childhood, and then we move on. But I think what we're trying to do is bury these ideas of legacy and the ideas of what we leave behind and what we achieve and what we give our children, or try to give our children, or hope we give our children, in a sense of the kind of crazy purpose we all extend ourselves through in our lives. What was your first question?
About casting and rehearsal.
What is it like? I believe that this would be trying to do the short answer to your question. I believe that my job is to try and get a moment on screen that at least feels, if not is, something that only happened or could happen once. That the difference between a theatrical experience on stage and a movie experience is that we can achieve a kind of intimacy with the lens. I don't mean just close, but I mean just intimacy. Like, it's just different, you know, if I'm watching someone from there and if I'm watching you. It's not just size, it's that I can read more and feel more, and that movies have the ability to deliver human thought in the moments that are not spoken, whereas the stage is really about speech, and tends to be, and that in tradition. And that, so what I'm after is that unspoken, undescribable, how did he do that moment in a movie? And that is, to me, the true special effect of movies, like not the one that's made in a computer or not the stunt necessarily, but that moment you go, how did they get that? You know, and that because it seems so like life. And at least that's my goal. So I don't like too much rehearsing. I will do a lot of time with my actors where we hang, where we talk. I'll take them on tours of the locations so they see, you know, one of the strange things that happens to actors, are you an actor? Very often on movies is that you'll have these extended periods of talking about your wardrobe, but no one will ever show you what your bedroom looks like till the day you show up to shooting it. So you're like, why do I have a Van Halen poster, and who picked these sheets? And like you have this whole moment, like I've spent 25 days picking my fucking shoes, but you've given me this room that looks like an idiot lives in it. And it's, so I try and solve that, meaning I'm trying to get them as comfortable with the world that their acting will take place in and the comrades in acting as possible, while at the same time trying not to allow false choices getting embedded in the movie. Meaning what I think can happen is dangerous in rehearsals is that actors, especially those that are eager and younger, try to make discoveries in the rehearsals that they've already arrived seeking to make. It's a complete bullshit exploration, that there's a kind of like I think I need to be here, and there's this kind of pseudo sharp-elbowed bullshit going on behind the actors, and I just have no patience for it anymore. It's like, we're gonna find the scene together, we're gonna find it reacting to what each other are doing, and we're not gonna come in with the agendas we worked out in our bathroom in front of the mirror. We're gonna figure it out here, and that's really the probably way too long description of my process.
Yes.
Where do you buy those glasses that he wears? Because I want to wear them.
Which guy? Because they're mostly Ray-Bans. Miles. Yeah. There's a specialty company in LA that actually sells them. They're basically Ray-Bans, but they have dice on the temples, and they're cool. They are cool. They look good. Yeah. Can you believe that Ray-Bans, like I hate product placement, they actually refuse to do a product placement deal with the movie? We have sold more effing glasses for them. And the only reason they did, this is such an example of the kind of bullshit marketing that we make fun of in the movie, is because we weren't representing current models of Ray-Bans. So it's like, why not make the old ones, dumb idiots? Like it's just, this is why we have our fingers up our butts in America. I mean, it's like, those glasses are beautiful, you know, and it's like no, we don't make them anymore, so we wouldn't possibly want to celebrate the legacy of our great company and the awesome glasses we made when they really look good.
All the way at the back, yes.
How would you describe like the linear process, or how the movie gets to each of you? You know, shooting it, getting sound on set, then to the editing room, the sound mixing.
Well, why don't we start with shooting it? Me and Steve shoot it. That you understand. He does the sound. I'm directing the scenes. Then
the footage comes to us, and then
day by day.
So we get after each day's shoot, we usually get the dailies either that evening or in the next day morning, and then we begin to cut actually immediately.
We have assistants that process it all, but I think the misnomer about editing is that we don't start cutting till like the movie's shot. It's like we're actually on one of the longest crew members positions on a movie is an editor. We're on before they start shooting, and we're on much longer, way until the end. I mean, we were on this movie about 11 months.
Yeah.
So we're cutting as we go along. Particularly just the modern day pressures of schedule demand that you're delivering a pretty fully fledged cut like a week or two after they finish shooting. So a movie like this, you got to be. It's like the mail. I mean, it just keeps coming and coming and coming. And by the time I get out of dailies, I'm just like, oh God, thank God we're out of dailies. Because sometimes it's just an avalanche of stuff. You get tons and tons of it. So we cut it. I get a picture cut. I'll send on this movie. I would send it to Don, who was really right next to the door to me. He would then take it and he'd start doing sound designing, and he'd give me back tracks, and we'd work that way.
The goal we want to have is that when the first time Jim sees a version of a scene, it's got all the elements that would make a final movie. Like it's got dialogue, music effects, things like that. It would make it seem like a tiny mix, and then that's where we start.
In the back, anyone? I don't want, yes.
I think the Le Mans sequence was really phenomenal, and it was just breathtaking. One thing I'm curious about on the set is, what were the non-racing actors reacting to?
What were the people in the stands reacting to?
Stan and Matt Damon, like.
That we actually drove cars by them. We were on the track, so I would. It's funny. It was something I learned on Walk the Line, which is I would find whenever I would shoot Reese or Joaquin or any of other players, and I'd be shooting an angle with my back, like to the audience, like shooting this way at them. And you would think, since you have all these extras in period costume, well, why keep them around when you're shooting your actors and the camera's not even pointed at your extras? Well, it changes the way your actors are behaving on stage when they're singing to nobody but some people with toothpicks and holding a clacker. And so the reality is is similar. We would, you could do a movie where you had Matt looking at a tennis ball on a C-stand, whipping by the lens and pretending it's a car, but it's not the same. And it's like the kind of thing we're all hunting for, the kind of thing I was describing with your question, isn't just on the actors, it's on us. Because especially in this kind of green screen period where you can supposedly drop anyone into a room with green backing and say, look at this tape and then look over there and we'll take care of the rest later, there's a loss. And it's not just a romantic loss, it's actually what's on the screen isn't as real. And it's because you're missing the way life pushes at us. You're missing, like even a lot of the driving shots in the movie of Christian, even when we built a rig where we had green screen out his window to hide the background that didn't match, but we were still driving him at 90 miles an hour while shooting him, so that the G-force and the wind and the particulates in the air and the vibration on the car, because it's not the same as when a car is sitting on a stage with some grip going like this with a 2x4. And it's just, people would say, oh, it's the same, you're bouncing the car, but it's not the same bouncing, it's not the same. And so all that stuff adds up one after another, to try and get that thing. So we had our drivers, and they drive the cars by for our audience and crowd to react to. Short answer is how I should have done it.
Yes.
How is working with Matt Damon and Christian Bale?
They're wonderful. I'd be boring. I just go on about how they're lovely, they're really kind, they're kind to each other, they're kind to the crew, they're incredibly talented.
They're also filmmakers.
Yeah.
They came into the cutting room a couple times and gave notes that are in the movie and made a huge difference. And they were editorial notes, made a huge difference. So they think movies. They're not just thinking.
And on
their
set,
spot.
they're helping me make the movie. They know, they understand where the camera is. They understand what I'm trying to do. They're getting how they can tailor. Your stage as an actor on film is the frame. So the more you're knowledgeable about how you can use that frame, where you can put your look, how you can use that rectangle, and when you're talking about guys like that, there is no better. It's that simple.
Yes.
Congratulations again on the films.
Thank you.
Beautiful. You were talking a lot about how much you're capturing that's unspoken. That's I think what's magic about this film is there's so much that's unspoken. It's relying on sound and visuals. The racing shots, I saw a lot of unique new stuff that I feel like I haven't seen before. I was wondering if you could speak about some of the process on how are you prevising, are you storyboarding, are you doing a whole mixture of stuff to figure out a lot of those unique shots that you're getting. I'm sure you have unique rigs and maybe some new camera styling and what went into that.
We did. Mike was on early. We made previs, and the race was so long we couldn't afford to previs at all. We did previs, and I had Gabe Hardman doing storyboards, and sometimes we just have kind of photos or something that and Mike would be cutting it all together, and even Don would be doing sound on the previs, and we had. Because we had to kind of do something, it was too complicated not to have planned how all these plates were going to be spinning and the shots would all interlock and a lot of pieces to gather. I'd say the only guiding philosophy Mike touched on earlier, which was to kind of stick with the characters, and because in a way, even at 90, when your average Fast and Furious costs over 200, we're not going to compete with the kind of sound and fury and spectacle you're going to get in a modern action film that's double our budget. What we can give you is you might care more, and so that's where we put our attention. But along those lines, our shots, I'm very phobic about. I think at a certain point, I think it's happening, but because we've been together, I can say this. We've all been saying this for a while. Is that the aesthetic, the CG aesthetic, fly through the keyhole and fly through the ceiling and follow it, it's like I'm over it. I was over it when it started, to be honest. I always feel like it looks like bullshit to me. It looks like I know I'm in a video game. I'm not in the movie. I'm watching the technology, and and I like technology. It's cool, but I make movies to try and do something else, which is not make you admire the equipment we made the movie with. And that so for that reason, my test is always, I don't, even in the previs, even where digital effects are involved, I don't want the camera somewhere I couldn't realistically put it, that it's in some impossible, ridiculous place. And so that I think it adds to a sense that it's really happening, even when the shot is a fiction. It makes even our effect shots more believable, because we're not pointing out to you that it's an effect shot by doing something ludicrous with the camera every time, because it's what happens, every time you're leaning on effects, you're already spending 30 grand on the shot. Why not do that? Because it doesn't cost any more. Are you sure you don't want one of these? Like, it comes free. You're 30 grand either way. And for a lot of directors, it's like, why not? Sure. And that, I think I got lulled into that, and then you start realizing every time I buy into that, like, I'll get the undercoating and the blah, 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 like, you get the shot looks more full of shit. So that it's like, what if I do the shot as if it were really effing happening? With no added extras. Only I need visual effects to do it, but I just don't add any of the stuff that tips you off that it's bullshit. And it's amazing how much in the movie where visual effects really is this movie should have been nominated for visual effects, because you don't see them. And they're invisible, and as you could tell by the credits,
Like
they were
the
a
rain.
huge presence.
Like the rain.
There was no
Like
rain.
the rain.
There was no rain. It was a wet down.
Wow.
We couldn't race cars in a pouring rain. We'd all die. So we just wet the street and drove wet cars on a wet street, and they added rain that hit the surface of the cars and looked like it was bouncing off and all of it. But because the cars are also not CG, because the angles are real, there's grain, there's light flaring, there's all these things. You don't think the rain is fake because so much of the image is real. And again, if we were making that shot fully digital, we could have done more with the camera that might have made it look fake to you, but you bought it because so much in the shot was bumpy, confined, and seemed like it wasn't made in a lab, Yeah.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Yay.
What else for nominations? Vote. Ballots are due tomorrow.